Welcome to everyone who's just joining. We're going to give another minute or two to let people arrive. In the meantime, there is a little free write prompt on your screen. Take a second to answer, ponder, write about that question. Thanks everybody for being here today. My name is Nick Lee. I'm the Senior Program Manager at the Edible Schoolyard, and I'm really excited to be welcoming you all to an introduction to Cooking with Curiosity. This is a curriculum that Raquel Vigil and I have been working on for quite some time, and we're really excited to share it with you. But to start, I just want to acknowledge where we are in this moment. For many of us here in California, we're seeing our neighbors affected, displaced, and being impacted by the quality of the air. And there's a multitude of climate disasters and emergencies going on around the country right now that we're reckoning with as a country, as a population. We're also sitting in a moment of uncertainty and unrest and in the politics and social world that we live in. So I just want to acknowledge that there's a lot going on for each and all of us, in addition to the pandemic that has uprooted life and changed so much since it started at the beginning of this year. So I just want to name that and also ground us in the work that we do of supporting youth to learn how to nourish and feed themselves, and how important that work is, and also how slow and long that work is. But it's important work, because when we educate youth and help them see how their choices, how their cooking, how their consumption can create a more just, more sustainable and better world, we're planting a seed for that world as well. I saw a quote today that kind of struck me, and I just wanted to share it with you. And it's attributed to Audrey Hepburn. But that quote is, "To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow." And it felt a little corny, but also just so real right now. And that to believe in tomorrow is something that we all need to do right now. So thank you for being here and for believing in tomorrow. And I do just want to take a moment to ground ourselves and do a little breathing exercise. And the breathing exercise that I'd like to do is in, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, and then out, 2, 3. So I'll count that the first time. And then I'll count just the in, hold, and out, second one. And on the third one, you'll do it all on your own. So again, we're going to breathe in for a count of 3, hold that breath for a count of 3, and then breathe out for a count of 3. So in, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, out, 2, 3. In, hold, out. Thank you for taking that moment with me. As we ground ourselves in this work and set our intention to learn and support one another in learning to become better teachers, and take this opportunity to enrich our practice so that we can support the youth that we work with. I'd like to share a brief agenda for the day, so bear with me while I get this screen share up again. And we're going to start by reviewing who's in the room. We have a number of wonderful educators, and it's great to see so many familiar faces tuning in. I recognize a lot of you from in-person summer trainings and from our summer training at home series earlier this year. So it's wonderful to see you back again, and to the new faces in the room, welcome. We're going to do a little poll, and you're going to get to share a little bit about who you are, and you'll get to see who the team is leading today's presentation. We'll do a breakout and discussion on perfectionism as a barrier to learning cooking and to practicing cooking. And then we'll dig into really the meat of this session is all about reflection as a tool to build self-efficacy. And then looking really closely at how this Cooking with Curiosity curriculum uses reflection as a key instructional strategy to build self-efficacy for our students. And then finally, we'll have a breakout discussion with ways that you practice this. And I'm sorry that got cut off there. but that breakout discussion group will be ways that you practice reflection and build self-efficacy with your students. And then finally, in the last few minutes, we'll have an opportunity for question and answer. Our essential questions for the day are: what is self-efficacy? What is reflection? How can reflection help build self-efficacy? And how can I integrate these practices into my teaching? So with those as our essential questions, it's our goal today that everyone leaves here with a greater understanding of reflection and self-efficacy, how they work together, and how you can build them into your teaching. So to start, we're going to do a kind of get to know you icebreaker discussion in a small breakout group where you'll be with 3 other people and getting to chat. You'll be working with this same breakout group throughout the session, discussing. So this is a moment to get to know each other a little bit. And the question you're going to be answering is, what's a culinary Everest or a culinary train wreck for you? And culinary Everest is, to me, a food that you want to cook, you love, you've never tried cooking because you're kind of afraid of it. It's that summit that's so high that you haven't even tried to climb it. So think to yourself, is there a dish that I really would love to know how to make, that I love eating out, but that you haven't ever tried to make? Or a culinary train wreck, something that you tried making and it did not go well, and you haven't gone back to it, you haven't revisited it. You thought that that failure was so miserable that why would you go back and do it again? And both of these are connected to this idea of perfectionism as a barrier to cooking. So just take a second to explore for yourself if there is a culinary Everest or a culinary train wreck that you'd be willing to talk about with a bunch of random strangers that you're being put into a breakout room with on the internet. And trust in one another with these stories. And if you're really not coming up with anything from your own personal experience, then think of a time that you've seen a student be kind of blocked by perfectionism in their growth, in their practice as they learn to cook. So again, you're sharing a culinary Everest or a culinary train wreck, and you're going to have about a minute each. We're giving you about 5 minutes in the breakout room. So just be mindful of that time on the clock as you're sharing your story with your new collaborators and friends. And Russell, if you could go ahead and launch the breakout rooms. All right, looks like everybody is back from their breakout rooms now. Seeing some smiles, which means I imagine there were some good stories out there. I want to take a sec to see who all is in the room here. And we're going to do that by launching a quick poll where you can answer a couple of questions, and then we'll be able to see who is doing what kind of work. So Russell, could you go ahead and launch that poll for us? And maybe as this is happening, we could have the team who's working on this presentation introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. I'm Raquel Vigil. I'm the curriculum specialist for Edible Schoolyard Project, the co-designer of Edible Ed at Home with Nick, and the primary designer on the Cooking with Curiosity. I'm really excited to be here and talk to you all about this curriculum.
And hey, everybody, I'm Russell. I support Raquel and Nick in making sure all that curriculum is as perfectly accessible as possible on the website, and thinking about ways to make sure that it is reaching everyone and is the best way and most easily in terms of accessing and making use in your communities.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel. I was lucky enough to be able to work with Raquel on this curriculum as a curriculum consultant. It was really fun and exciting to get to create some lessons and resources.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. So it looks like we have most people weighing in on the poll. We have a majority of people in the room are educators, either in after-school, nonprofit, or community organizations. We have some parents and guardians, a couple of school administrators, some volunteers, about 10 classroom teachers in the room. It looks like the vast majority of people are doing distance learning with mostly synchronous teaching. Some doing distance learning with asynchronous, and just a couple people in-person and a few in hybrid learning models. We have a good number of people who are not yet or not currently teaching cooking classes. about 10 people who are teaching cooking a couple times a month, and just a couple who are teaching multiple times a week or every day. And it looks like a lot of people are already incorporating reflection practices into their lessons. That's really wonderful to hear. We've got 32% are saying every lesson has some reflection activity, and just about half of people are saying that every couple of lessons will have some reflection activities. And as far as grade level, it looks like we are working mostly with middle school students and upper elementary. Just a couple of people teaching post-secondary and high school. So really wonderful to have such a great group in the room here today. So we posited in this curriculum that perfection is a barrier to cooking. And I think that in your examples, you probably illustrated how that culture of perfection can be a barrier to cooking and to learning to cooking for youth. And one of the things that we did in this curriculum is we really relied on reflection practices as a strategy for building self-efficacy. And what we're talking about when we talk about reflection is the practice of looking at and considering our own thoughts and supporting students to do that practice, which doesn't come naturally. It is a practice that can be taught, and it is a practice that can be supported by creating space. Self-efficacy we see as a student's belief that they can accomplish something, that they can do something. And so reflection can be a really valuable tool for building self-efficacy. And instead of talking at you and telling you how I see that and how I believe that, I'm going to ask you to go back to your breakout rooms and talk with one another about how you see that. What are the reflection practices that you use? How do you see reflection supporting students to build self-efficacy? What other things do you see supporting students to build self-efficacy? So we're going to have about 5 minutes again in those breakout rooms with the same people you were just talking with to talk about what reflection practices do you use, how do they build self-efficacy, and why is building self-efficacy so important? So let's go ahead and go back to those breakout rooms. Hey everybody, welcome back from your breakouts. If you have anything that came up in your breakout room that you would love to share with the group, go ahead and type it into the chat. How you see reflection, supporting students to build self-efficacy. Again, if there's any moments from your breakout that you think everybody should really hear, go ahead and type those into the chat right now. As you do that, I'm gonna lean into cooking with curiosity. So again, this is a new curriculum that we just published the first unit of just over 2 weeks ago. And the second unit will come out in another 2 weeks, and the third and fourth unit will be released in November altogether. And this is a brand new curriculum that is really designed for this moment. It is designed for both distance learning and also to be suitable to in-person learning. Cooking with Curiosity is available at no cost. It's all available for download for use on our website. And one thing I want to emphasize is that everything is designed to be used easily. The lessons can be downloaded and then uploaded to your Google Classroom or emailed to your students. All of the PDFs are written to a student audience, so they can be sent directly to your students. All of the PDFs are fillable so that they can complete them, and then you can collect them back as worksheets. And in addition, each and every lesson is designed to be a standalone lesson. The curriculum is written as a 16-week sequence. And if you want to pull just a couple of lessons from that sequence and use those to add to the cooking activities and garden activities that you already have, every lesson is designed to function as a standalone as well. So this curriculum is really exciting to me because it highlights reflection as a practice to overcome that judgmental culture of perfection. It's really supporting students to practice reflection and, in a way, affirm themselves as they are teaching or as they're learning cooking in a form that's much more isolated than what we're traditionally used to teaching cooking. Raquel and I were just talking before this workshop, and that was a thing that kind of clicked in my mind was reflection is a process for helping students self-affirm. And one of our roles as teachers in the classroom leading students in cooking is affirming the work that they've done. I think that the question that I hear most often from students when I'm in the classroom is, am I doing this right? How does this look? Is this okay? And these are things that we need to teach students how to answer for themselves. And reflection is a process that will help them do that and help them find the belief in their own work that will give them the confidence and self-efficacy to go forward and do more work. It's lacking that confidence to do that work that will often stop students from trying to cook. So this session is really all about that reflective practice. And to lean into that, we're going to dig into one of the lessons in particular, which is the reflection wheel lesson, which is a setup lesson that is then touched back on in many of the other lessons. And before we dig into the reflection wheel lesson, I actually want to switch to a screen share and just show you how to navigate our website and access this curriculum so that you can find it and download the different resources. Give me 1 second as I switch my screen share to that window. So if you are on our website, you'll see the homepage looks just like this, where we have our wonderful pledge to public education. And you can click this large banner right here that says, click here to find the edible education resources. Right now we have Cooking with Curiosity right at the top of this page. And there's a couple of different pieces of the curriculum that you can view from this view. The one that I want to show you first is the entire Cooking with Curiosity overview. So this is a large document that really outlines the whole pedagogy, all of the thought that has gone into Cooking with Curiosity. And within this document, you can read more about the guiding principles and the instructional strategies that we're talking about right now, and some of the other ones that we'll address in the next training session on this curriculum. Also in this document is a map for each of the units. And again, Unit 1 is up right now online. Unit 2 will be released in 2 weeks. And within this map, you have links to each and every one of those lessons that's currently online. Going back to our Edible Education at Home page, you can also click instead on this View Unit 1 button. And this will take you to a new web page that shows you all of those lessons. These links will end up taking you to the same places. So we'll go ahead and click on the kitchen reflection wheel, since that's the lesson we're going to lean into right now. And this will take you to this resource detail page. Within this resource detail page, you have the summary, the learning goals and objectives, a few notes, but the actual lesson plan is in a PDF form. And so you'll have to click these buttons here to get access to those lesson plans. So again, each of these is downloadable. You can download this and then email it to your students. It's ready as a fillable PDF for them to complete. Anything that is referenced within this lesson is a link, so you can easily navigate from one resource to the next. And this lesson is instructions for students to build a little reflection wheel, an actual physical wheel that they would spin after completing a lesson that would prompt them to answer some questions in a category. And I'll go ahead and jump over to that lesson plan that has those questions that they would answer. And so this is where we'll really lean into how reflection questions support students to build self-efficacy. And we're not asking the students to consider really complex questions. It is a process of reflecting on their own thought and practicing that metacognition, but they're not really complex questions. You can see it's just asking them, do you like how it looks? Are you comparing it to something else? It's starting a train of thought that will help them understand how they are judging their own work. That's really the point here, is to help them start that train of thought and recognize what they are seeing, what they are judging, what they are comparing it to. Taste. Do you like how it tastes? Again, are you comparing it to something else? For skills here, do you feel that you had the information and skills needed? Did you have the right equipment? In this case, these questions are guiding the students to recognize if there was something that they were missing. Did they not succeed because they weren't set up properly? That might not be something that they would recognize without that prompt and question. And in failing to recognize that they weren't set up to succeed, they would internalize that failure and blame themselves for it. Where with this support, they can recognize that, you know what, actually, I really wasn't quite equipped to succeed in this and just needed some different resources. Raquel, do you have any notes on these questions here?
Yeah, I mean, I really love this lesson. And some of the things that I really love about it is, one, it really presents sort of that opportunity that Nick is saying is pretty low stakes, meaning that students can spin it, can look at it, reflect on it in 5 minutes. Two, that it can be taken to the classroom, taught synchronously, and you could really dig in with students and have students do a broader share out. And it could be this opening of some broader conversations about how do we determine if something tastes good? What are we comparing these ideas to? That could really launch into these rich discussions. I also think it's one of these really nice activities that we try to build that think about also sort of whole family. And I think you see it if you look at the resource, the detail, the opening page of the lesson, it sort of indicates the sort of different classroom environments and says that it's a whole family. And so at the end of that lesson, we say, you know, a note to parents, this is something that you can do with as a family, sort of say, every time we cook a meal, let's think about some of these questions. And I think that that's really nice that not only are we sort of saying that learning, obviously, we can set up our classrooms in which learning happens around cooking, but let's also create these exercises and these things that engage, that extend the learning into the times in which students aren't with us in our synchronous classes. And I really love that about sort of this lesson and kind of the approaches just generally in the different types of reflections that we're doing in this curriculum. Oh, and the last thing I'll also say is that I think these types of reflection also extend and align to the kitchen habits of mind, which is sort of the first, they're kind of the sort of more of the narrative, if you look at that lesson, that sort of talk about like the ways that we think about our senses, and guiding students more to sort of understand what we mean when we say those kinds of things. So it's also a really nice complement that actually gets students into the practice of thinking about the habits of mind. So it's a nice alignment to that lesson as well.
Absolutely. So again, just to look from the top, again, we're here at the Edible Edit homepage, and you can go to the Unit 1 overview, where again, you'll see each and every one of these lessons has that resource detail page and then the download links for those PDFs. And here's that Kitchen Habits of Mind lesson, the first lesson that Raquel was talking about. If you haven't spent any time with these, I would really encourage you to browse them, see if there's some that you're interested in using or using the whole set. And if you have any feedback or thoughts or stories of how you have used them, please do reach out. As a curriculum writer and designer, and as a team of curriculum writers and designers, we're really interested in knowing how these resources are working for you or how they're not working for you. And we take that input and integrate it into our process as we move forward. So please do reach out if you have any feedback about using or using these lessons, or even if you have any feedback about how they're presented here, how that sets you up to use them or not use them. We do want to hear all of that kind of feedback. So that's how we envision reflection supporting building self-efficacy. And I want to, again, give you a chance to talk about how you use reflection and how you see these activities potentially folding into the ways that you teach currently, or how you could adapt some of these lessons into your practice. So we're again going to go to our breakout groups and just take a second to think about how you use reflection to support your students. If there's anything that you've heard in this that strikes you that you want to start to practice in your teaching, or if there's any questions that you still have about reflection and building self-efficacy. And those are all things that you can talk about in your breakout group. So we're going to go to our breakout groups for 8 minutes now, and then we'll return for a final bit of Q&A time where you can ask questions of me and Raquel and Rachel about the curriculum. So we'll see you in a few. I'm seeing a question from Sue here in the chat that says, suggestions, ideas for adapting lessons to lower grade levels, K through 5. And Lynn is seconding that question. And I think that many of the concepts and lessons written in Cooking with Curiosity can be adapted and scaled down. One of the adaptations that we have suggested in the curriculum is to do recordings, either video or voice recordings of any of the sections that say read, and that's a way that you can support younger students who might not be able to read as much text as is written in the curriculum to engage with it. But a lot of those are designed to work for many age groups. Teaching the basics of knife safety might be done with a paring knife instead of a chef knife for the upper elementary students, or even a plastic salad knife for the lower elementary students. Engaging with them on cleaning, I think, is still something that the elementary school students can do. And that cleaning checklist maybe could be pared down a little bit to create a resource that works well for K through 5. But that's certainly a concept that I would want to be introducing at that age. Does anybody else in the room have ideas for scaling those things down to K through 5?
I might just add that I think some of the scaling for K through 5 also probably involves more conversations with families. Just is there opportunity in which maybe it's those things are taught synchronously, or is there opportunity older siblings that might want to participate and support the younger siblings, or just kind of having more dialogue with families about supporting their young person could be, if that is a possibility. It's not always an option, but I think that way the cooking lessons could be supported at home that way.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming out today and joining us on this. We are going to have another training around this curriculum on October 21st. That's a Wednesday, I believe 4 weeks from now. And it'll be same time. And we'll be really digging into sharing as a practice for building community and, again, supporting students to build their self-efficacy. And talking about how to share on digital platforms, how to share virtually, and still foster that sense of a classroom community with students sharing their work. In the meantime, keep your eyes out for the next newsletter 2 weeks from today that will have Unit 2 release in it. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, you can do so on our website. I'll be sure to include a sign-up link in my follow-up email to this as well. And finally, I am going to put a survey link in the follow-up email, and I would really appreciate it if you could take the survey just to give us a little bit of feedback on this webinar and on the curriculum, and that will help us as we design the next webinar and the next curriculum. Thanks again for coming out. Really appreciate you all being here. I hope you have a great evening.